Do you remember physically the feeling when you saw your first, I would assume probably a porn magazine, if it, or your first porn 16 millimeter clip?
I don't remember precisely what it was, but I remember generally that, yeah, kind of. I remember when I saw my first porn movies, it was the Festival Theater in Chicago, snuck in the back door. But before that, because I was 16, before that, these little books you'd read, and I'd hide them behind the radiator in our house. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, very powerful.
Do you remember a physical response? Not speaking of a hard-on, but something where your body kind of said, "Whoa, okay, this is something. This is something adults have access to." Like a curtain had been kind of drawn open.
Um, well, the fact that I hid the books behind the radiator, that, yeah, it was not, it was forbidden. You know, it carried guilt along with it.
Hmm.
But I think I realized really quickly that part of the pleasure was the guilt. Part of the pleasure was the pain. Uh, the twisting of the cord a little bit, the getting caught, the cheating, even the slap, different forms of tension without different forms of tension. I think I realized that pretty damn early, somehow. I also came to this recently. It was another interview, and they were asking me why I did what I did, why I did X-rated movies, and I've realized that, because I got this story about, I was William Morris, I was in the mainstream, and I chose to stop that and to do X-rated films. I didn't fail at it, I chose. I couldn't have done anything else but X-rated movies. It was a calling. I remember a specific day when I was supposed to go to Kirk Douglas's house to read for a movie called Posse. My agent was his agent. And I chose instead to go to an X-rated movie theater, sit in the back and jack off. And passed off Kirk Douglas. X-rated movies, acting in them and directing them, sexuality in all its forms, and be able to use, which was the strongest form in me, was strongest force in me by far, sexuality, being able to use that to create a life was incredible. So I've recently come to the realization that it wasn't a failure, it wasn't a compromise, it was a calling. Just thought I'd share that.
How did you observe? What did you observe in your parents' relationship towards each other? Was the environment you grew up in? Was it cohesive? Was it chaotic?
It was
Did your parents express affection towards each other, or were they open about it in front of you? Or?
It was Ordinary People. Remember the movie, Ordinary People? It was. My mother was. My parents. I don't remember them expressing affection. There was always doubts as to my father's integrity in different areas of his life, that he was cheating in this, and he was cheating with women, cheating in business, telling a lie, doing the wrong thing. My father was always suspected of doing the wrong thing. And my mother would always sort of shine it on and smile and be the Mary Tyler Moore. I come from a very, very wealthy family, and my father was the black sheep.
You were talking about the relationship your parents had, and very ordinary people-ish, and
Yeah.
Your dad was always suspected of improprieties.
My dad was a combination of Rodney Dangerfield and Jackie Gleason. He was big, boisterous, loving guy who ultimately was full of shit.
What did you get any sense?
But he was there. He was there. He stayed. He stuck it out. He supported things. He was there.
Yeah. And to you, that has value.
Huge value. He was there for me. You know, I always knew he was a little full of shit. Okay,
Right.
but he was there. Always.
Did you ever get a sense of how he viewed women if he were somebody that were having these little side affairs behind their mother's back?
Different women in different ways, you know. He could view some of them as objects, and he certainly had prostitutes in his life, I know. But he respected women.
Was he sexually hungry, or was it something of a companionship?
Yeah, oh yeah, he was very sexual. Yeah.
Now, your mother, suspecting your father's activities and not saying anything, did that also influence how you wanted to be perceived by women as you became?
I didn't think it was cool to be monogamous. First of all, I didn't think it was particularly possible for me. And when others said they were monogamous or wanted to be, I wouldn't particularly believe them, or I put it off to some sort of a negative, not a positive. You know, to be monogamous, to not have a lot of women, was not to me a positive thing. It was a negative thing. It was a limiting thing. You're doing it because you're scared of life. You're not making the biggest choice you can make. You're just you're in denial. You know, that's where I was at. So monogamy had no attraction. There was nothing.
Didn't care.
Well, there was no industry. I mean, I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't aware of a porn industry or porn stars before I got into it. You know, I didn't live out here. I wasn't aware of it. I remember I was actually a fan of John Holmes. I thought he was actually a funny guy, a funny actor. Besides his sexuality, I thought there must be cool people with cool lives. That's all. I never thought of anything negative about them. And no one's not. Anyone ever talked about them. Wasn't.
What was the first year you did start performing?
74.
74. And that was up north?
Yeah.
San Francisco.
Such a brother, CB Mamas.
So, I mean, as far as California is concerned and the porn industry that really started with you when you caught that wave in 74. And you worked how long in front of the camera?
12 years.
As a performer. And then you left and never went back to performing again? No. The talk about, obviously, because the time that you were working was different than mine. How did people get to know, like, oh, meet this director and this guy's shooting something in LA? Yeah. How did you network?
It was in San Francisco where I started. And I'm trying to think if there was an agent. There must have been some sort of an agent up there. Nothing like now. It's a good question. I don't remember, but there's certainly knowledge to be had when people were coming. There was no Facebook or anything, you know. So, but we certainly knew when Sam Weston was coming in town, or when Robert McCullough was coming in town. Or, you know, we knew. From LA, people would come up with Ted Paramore. You don't even know these names, do you?
No.
Yeah. Harold
McCullough,
okay. Would come in town to audition, and they would come in town from LA, and they'd get it.
How often were you working on average?
I think I worked 7 to 10 days a month. Yeah, I got $1,000 a day, so it's a lot of money.
Good money.
Yeah. Yeah. Budgets were much bigger.
Were you working more than a female performer?
Yeah.
because you were with everybody.
Well, yeah.
You're working in theater. You were doing commercials. When you started being recognized in public for the adult films,
Right.
how did you feel about that?
It was cool. It was good. It was
Did it have
good.
more or less value than somebody saying, "Oh, I saw your play"? Why?
Uh, it was it was it was cool. It was more or less value, but it was cool. And who recognized me and how they recognized me, but it was something I was proud of. Something I was proud of. Sure.
Being an adult obviously makes intimate relationships which are difficult to begin with, even more so. When you were working an adult, were you in intimate relationships, not necessarily monogamous, but you were either married
Sure.
or engaged or?
I was never married, but yeah, I had always had a relationship going on. Almost always. Yeah, I almost always had a relationship or two going on.
Making that switch, okay, honey, got to go to work. Obviously, the okays, you get 9 okays, and then you get one.
Well, my girlfriends were usually in the business. Now that I think about it, maybe I didn't really have a primary relationship for most of the years. When I got married, I quit. I can't believe I was so honorable, but I did. Actually, now that I think of it, for most of the years, I didn't have that primary relationship, and when I did, the girl was in the business. But for about 10 years, I was pretty free, no relationship.
But her being in the business didn't necessarily mean that she was going to have, any understanding.
Yeah, I never dealt with that. I never faced that at all. A woman who was upset with my going to work. I lied to a lot of women who I was just mostly mainstream women who I was taking out, and I didn't want them to know that I was an active porno star because I thought it would ruin my relationship with them. But I can't recall having. I had a couple of relationships with women, and I just lied to them.
What would you tell them you were doing? Or just a stage?
I was
actor.
going to director. I was I also had a cable television business where I bought and sold movies from cable television. So I'd have other reasons. I lied to women so much. A stupid fucking thing to do. I lied so much.
Why, does this kind of tie into that love of the guilt or that love of the pain of hiding the porn behind the
Yeah, I don't know if I love that. It's just I don't love the guilt. I don't love the pain. I love the pain, but it's a different type of psychological pain. But hiding the porn, no, I don't love that. I'm talking about the pain of having a relationship threatened is very sexy.
But do you think so? You're hiding a portion of who you are from this person.
Right.
Were you embarrassed then of that person?
No, I thought if that person found out that they wouldn't be as nice to me, as loving, as forthcoming as whatever I was getting from them, I wouldn't get it. Either because they directly told me, or
Because there was a stigma of people that.
oh yeah, oh sure. Once I became a porn actor, it was definitely a stigma. Definitely. It was before I was even involved in the business. I wasn't aware of anything. I wasn't aware of the business. But once I got involved, oh, definitely a stigma. Absolutely.
Was that a surprise to you? Were you like,
No,
what did I sign up for?
no, not at all. But I just never remembered being much of an issue in my life as far as it ostracizing people from my life.
Right.
In fact, I used to say, being Paul Thomas is a great instant filter for me, because it filters out the people in my life who don't belong there anyway. It filters them out instantly.
Right. It does. It does. It makes people.
But I never had an intimate relationship with a woman while being a porn star of any length. I had some, but and was truthful about it. I had a few, but I lied.
I have too. Don't feel bad.
You're the guy. I heard there was one other guy who lied. It was you.
Did you have any insecurities that the business enhanced, or does the business enhance insecurities?
The business can certainly enhance a low self-esteem. The way that sex is held in our society, with all the guilt and the shame and the do's and the don'ts and the judgments, you need to know, you need to have your self-esteem intact. Or if not, being a porn star, what you think people are saying about you and the way you think people are treating you, whether it's real or not, yeah, you can really have your confidence, your self-esteem, you can get undermined, you can become paranoid. You need to have your shit together to be able to carry yourself with full value and say, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, and I'm a porn star. And if you do, people get over it. And again, if they don't, fuck them. They don't belong in your life anyway. It does amaze me now when I think about it, now that I'm retired, some of the decisions that I made in my life. Simply the decision to be a porn star. And how foreign it was to my life and my family. I mean, I come from real blue bloods. And oh my God, how did I do that? But I thought about it at the time, and it was like, it wasn't even a decision. Should I do it or shouldn't I? It was an absolute calling of, here, this beautiful girl, this beautiful script, all this money. You gonna do it or not? Of course. It's some stupid. If I could do it again, I would not. I would have stayed with William Morris. I had the best agent in Hollywood, the single best agent. His name was Stan Kamen. He signed me up when I was on stage. New York flew me out. He put me up in I was on my way if I stuck it out. I didn't have the discipline. I tell you, I had a calling for X-rated movies, but I didn't have the discipline of craft. I'm sure you can relate to this, to sacrifice what I needed to sacrifice to become a success in the mainstream. If I had to do it, got to do it again, I might have done it differently.
But you wouldn't have had.
I had such an amazingly successful, wonderful career. It's tough for me to say that, but
You're 12 years in front of the camera. When you ended that, you got married?
Yeah.
During that time, did you ever hit the wall? Before that 12th year, when you
I mean, as a porn actor,
you're just hitting the wall with just after 4 years, and you're working 10 times a month, so you're
never hit the wall with porn as a porn
you
actor.
just want to get out and just say, ugh.
No, it wasn't, because it was like 7-10 days a month, and I always had bigger crises to overcome. I was always into drugs. I was a drug addict, but I wasn't a drug addict who did them every day. I'd binge. So I always had, before I could hit the wall in anything, I'd have some 4 or 5 day
Release.
Binge on mescaline and LSD, a couple Quaaludes and a gram of cocaine, and I had
just a gram.
Yeah,
wow.
An ounce. I had that. I had that unbelievable party, and then the aftermath, and digging my way up to. I was so happy to just get my head above water and feel good again. I was grateful to be a porn star. So I created bigger crisis with drugs and never got to face any others for Arrested Development.